And stopping by the show right now is the New York Times best-selling author of the book, Joe Posnanski. Joe, thanks for being here. I've got to tell you, I loved it. I loved the book. You can leave it on your coffee table, pick it up, open to any page, read a great story about football. You picked 100 stories. Why these 100?
You know, for me, it was that was the toughest part. It always is trying to narrow it down to where you get, if in this case, 100 stories. And for me, every story, what I wanted it to do, I wanted it to explain why it is we love this game. I mean, why this game has such a hold on us in America. I mean, it's extraordinary. You know, the numbers, 93 of the top 100 shows last year on television were professional football games. I mean, it's an astonishing control that the game has on us and our psyches and our emotions. And so I wanted each moment to at least talk a little bit about what it is that we love about the game.
Well, Joe, you count us down from 100 down to number 1. And I think Rams fans here in Los Angeles are going to be very happy to know that the very first chapter in the book, number 100, is none other than Aaron Donald, and specifically the way he closed out Super Bowl 56 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Why did this make the book?
Well, there are two reasons why. One is, of course, that's an amazing play. It was two amazing plays back to back by an all-time great player. So, I mean, that is very much why we love football. But the second reason is, I think when you talk about history of the greatest players in professional football history, Aaron Donald gets a little bit overlooked. I mean, I think everybody knows he's an all-time great, but there is an argument that Aaron Donald is the single best defensive player who ever played the game. And for me, I have him in my top 10 of all time. That's all positions. He was that good. And I think at times we kind of overlooked that. They played tackle. It's a little bit of a workman-like position and all that. But the way he dominated games, and then specifically the way he dominated the end of that Super Bowl, sort of speaks to his greatness.
You know, Joe, one thing I love about football is that we have all of these plays and we've got nicknames for these plays. And so when you say these nicknames, people know generally, if they're any kind of football fan, exactly what you're talking about. Talking about like the Immaculate Reception and the helmet catch, of course, the Philly special. I was there for that Super Bowl, the Phillies, the Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots. The guarantee, Joe Namath. So as you rank these from 100 down to 1, was there a criteria for the order and which ones you felt were the greatest?
Yeah, there definitely was. I mean, I wanted to put it in an order, first of all, that made sense. Because, I mean, it's not just professional football, as you know. I mean, it's college football as well. And they're very famous. The play is a college football play, right? Kick six and so on and so on. So I definitely wanted it to have an order to it. And we do go all the way to what I think is the greatest moment in football history. Obviously, at some point in the middle there, you're kind of guessing a little bit and you're trying to sort of make it make sense, right? I mean, you want it to be something that if somebody chooses to read it from the beginning to the end, which is, that's not, you don't have to read it that way. But if you do, I want it to make sense. I wanted it to be a real travel through the history of the NFL and the history of football in general, pro and college football. So that's why I did it. But you're right about the names. I mean, as you know, one of the little Easter eggs of this book is that football has had more miracles than anything ever, more miracles than in the Gospels.
The Music City Miracle, and of course.
Music City Miracle, Miracle at the Meadowlands, Miracle in Michigan, Miracle in Mississippi, the Bluegrass Miracle, on and on and on. So I wanted, so every 10 or so on the sevens, you will get a different miracle. And I really love doing it that way.
Well, one thing that's really fun about reading this book, and again, if you're any kind of a football fan, you'll have either seen these, after the fact, maybe you witnessed them watching television live, and maybe you were there. Like, for example, I was lucky enough to be at the Whitney Houston National Anthem game, Super Bowl 25, 1991 in Tampa, Florida. One of the great moments of my sports career, and it wasn't even technically a sport, right? She was singing the national anthem, and it was just a beautiful thing to witness. Do you have, personally, one that really stands out for you?
So many of them do, and I was lucky enough to be at so many of these. You're right. But you know which one stands out that's kind of overlooked a little bit in history is the tackle. where the St. Louis Rams win the game with a Mike Jones tackle at the 1-yard line right at the end of the game. I love that moment for a lot of reasons. One, being there was just so incredible, and all of that. But also, like, defense is so rarely, the focus of these great moments. These great moments are so often, Hail Mary passes or great catches or incredible runs. Offense really takes the case. And so with Aaron Donald at number one, with the tackle, there's the stand from the Alabama game against Penn State in the bowl game. And I loved doing that. I loved it when I could pick a moment, because defense is such a big part of the game, obviously. And being there, watching him make that tackle, even when you watch that now, and I do think that people who read this book will probably want to have YouTube nearby so they can see the plays themselves. But when you watch it even now, you are absolutely certain Kevin Dyson's going to score. There seems no way for him to tackle, but he does every time.
I remember talking to him about that play, and oh so close. By the way, I noticed the wardrobe malfunction was not included in the book. I was at that as well. Justin Timberlake, of course, Janet Jackson.
Yes.
I love the fact that you reference the late, great George Carlin. And his routine that he did comparing football to baseball was one of my favorites. And you quote him in the book. And it really shows the dichotomy, doesn't it, between how we watch baseball and how we watch football and what makes football so unique.
Yeah. I mean, one of the real keys for me, because my last couple of books have both been baseball books, and have both been I've been very lucky to be, they've been really, bestsellers and really successful. So when I was trying to write a football book, I was like, all right, I'm a football fan and I'm a baseball fan. What's the difference? And I thought about that a lot. The difference between the two sports, the difference between the ways we watch them, the different impacts they have on us. And George Carlin's routine, of course, is one of my all-time favorites. I memorized it years ago. And I think about it all the time. And I particularly think about his line where he says, in baseball, there's kind of a picnic feeling in the stands. And in football, you can be sure that every 27 seconds, you can take the life of a fellow human being. And I really believe that's sort of at the core. It's just it just pulls different emotions out of us.
Well, it certainly does. And Joe, I really enjoyed reading this book, Why We Love Football, A History in 100 Moments. Joe Posnanski. Joe, thanks so much and best of luck to you.
Oh, gosh, thank you.